Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 5, The Jedi recap here today with myself, Graham Jason Matthews, and as always, the doc, Chris Mueller. Chris, you just mentioned to me right before we started recording here, this might have been your favorite episode of Season 2 so far. Is that true?
Yeah, it's definitely up there. I mean, in terms of the whole show.
The entire show, you're
there.
including Season 1 with this with that claim as well.
Yeah, this one definitely stuck out to me.
It was a really, really good episode. So, again, we're 5 episodes in here. We've reviewed every episode of Season 2 so far. Kicked off with a bang with that first episode. You got Timothy Oliphant, Boba Fett coming back. The second episode we mentioned was kind of a downer, a bit of a filler episode. Third episode of Sasha Banks and everything that went down there. Bo-Katan was great. Last week's episode was also very good. We got Ahsoka Tano in this episode. We've been waiting for her for a while now. We knew she was in Season 2. They confirmed her in Episode 3 2 weeks ago. So with this episode, we finally see her. She was the real focus of this episode, I would say. I assume we will see her again. Almost confirmed, actually, considering what went down at the end here. First and foremost, they asked you about Bo-Katan 2 episodes ago, and if she kind of lived up to your expectations and doing the cartoon version of the character justice. Would you say the same thing about Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano in this episode?
Yeah, I think she was pretty perfect casting for this, and she did a great job playing the character years after we had last seen her in the shows.
So what's the timeline looking like here? She was in Clone Wars, Order 66 happens, and then we get Rebels. She's in Rebels, doesn't die. Is her final fight with Darth Vader the last time we see her in Rebels, or is that just one of the final episodes that she's in?
No, it's not. I might have to spoil some stuff from Rebels for you, because I know you haven't seen it.
I know, I haven't seen it. So the thing is, before you go any further, I will say this. I do want to watch the show. I will watch the show. Feel free to spoil it. It's okay. But I want to watch the show more now than I did before, knowing that all these characters are coming back from the show. So I'm excited to watch them both at some point.
I mean, Ahsoka's probably only in, like, maybe a dozen episodes of Rebels. Clone Wars is really more her show.
Okay.
But, yeah, it just... So, the timeline's kind of weird. It's like Rebels takes place about 5 years before the original trilogy starts.
Oh, okay.
And then when she fights Darth Vader in the temple on that show, like, they leave it real ambiguous as to what happened to her, because you think Darth Vader kills her.
Mm-hmm.
And then you later find out that the main character of that show, Ezra, he ends up accessing this thing called the World Between Worlds, which is almost like a portal through time. And he's, like, watching her fight with Darth Vader, and he's somehow able to pull her out of that moment. And he saves her from getting killed and pulls her kind of into the future almost.
Ezra you're talking about.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see Ezra again on this show?
Well, on this show, when she's interrogating the magistrate, she asks, "Where's Grand Admiral Thrawn?"
Yep.
And the last scene of Rebels is Ezra sacrificing himself to send Thrawn across the galaxy in this ship that's being attached to by all these, like, space whales that can travel at hyperspeed.
Okay.
So it's a little weird, but so Ezra is, like, still theoretically alive out there somewhere, and her and the character Sabine from Rebels take off at the end of that show to go look for him. So the fact that she's still looking for Thrawn is probably means she's still looking for Ezra this many years later.
Yeah, most likely. So you mentioned Thrawn there as well, and that was one of my other questions for you. Obviously, that was a big reveal coming out of the episode. She was interrogating that woman at the end of this episode, and she asked where Admiral Thrawn was. Now, can you kind of give me the lowdown on who Thrawn is? And you mentioned him before, but I've heard a lot of talk about him and how a lot of people, he's, for a lot of people, one of their favorite characters that I guess the expanded universe really went into great detail about before that was all erased, obviously, from being canon. But he was on the show. So can you kind of give me a lowdown on what he's all about and where he might be going with this show?
I mean, I've never read the book. There's, like, 3 books based around his character that are still considered canon.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And I've never read any of those, but in the Rebels show, he was just, like, a brutal Imperial general Grand Admiral, I guess, who he liked to like take little trinkets from the cultures that he conquered to sort of learn about them and stuff. And he was a very like intelligent bad guy and
Hmm.
just super brutal in his methods. So the fact that Ahsoka is still looking for him just makes it clear that all these years later that they never found him yet.
Do you think he has any ties to Moff Gideon and whatever he's planning after what we saw in last week's episode, or do you think that's completely separate?
I think it's separate. I think that this might have been them planting the seeds if they decide to do a show about Ahsoka Tano, like if they're going to do a live action show for her, if
Hmm.
Rosario's up for it.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Well, speaking of which, we kind of mentioned, I asked you about her before, but her appearance, I thought she looked great. I think she looked as much like the character from Clone Wars and Rebels as she possibly could. I think they did a great job of putting the makeup on and everything.
Yeah, they did a really good job with that, especially with the fact that Rosario Dawson doesn't have blue eyes, and they gave her the blue eyes in this, so she looked just like her character.
Yeah, no, the resemblance was great. If you do like a side by side, at certain points in this episode, she looked almost cartoonish in a good way. She looked like I mean, with how good like the animation is nowadays, it almost looked like it was an animated character, but it was actually her. So I thought she did a great job. I thought the planet of Corvus, the whole battle that goes down there, I don't know. I thought it was just something very different than what we normally see from the show. I liked how this episode really stood out in a good way, and we'll talk about the Baby Yoda stuff and Gorg, I believe is his name. We'll talk about that stuff in a second, but how do you think the whole episode played out and what were your thoughts on it compared to other episodes that we've seen from the show so far in both Season 1 and Season 2, Chris?
Well, I mean, the first scene of the episode was probably my favorite, where it shows her running around on the battlefield just murking these soldiers left and right.
Yeah.
Um, like her character is just became a super badass Jedi over time throughout the shows, and it's gotten to the point where she may be the most powerful Jedi ever at this point because she spent a lot of time in that world between worlds area I was telling you about, learning about the Force.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, she may be more powerful than, Obi-Wan or Yoda ever was, for all we know. And it seemed like she had a really good mastery over the Force and just everything she was doing. Like it looked like she was perfectly in control the whole time.
Yeah, you mentioned the opening scene. I'm so glad you brought that up because I kind of forgot about it. That I thought that was one of the best parts of the entire episode. How they just opened the episode, and we know that she's on the show, so it's not like it's a big surprise. Just killing all these soldiers, and I don't know. I just thought the way that it kind of played out was fantastic, and specifically when they break into the temple, or I'm not sure how you would describe it exactly. I thought that whole scene was great too, and how she kind of took the lead, and then Mando just kind of was there to help her out. I thought that was really good. But another big thing coming out of the episode, not only did we have Ahsoka Tano and the reveal of Thrawn still being out there and him kind of being a cliffhanger for a future episode, the Baby Yoda origins was a big part of this episode. So we finally, I mean, obviously we already knew this, but Mando now finds out that the connection to Yoda, and she mentions Yoda. Obviously, she knows him very well from their interactions on the shows, Clone Wars and Rebels. She even made a reference to Anakin and how she was kind of close with him. So the best of us, I think, is how she described him on this episode. Turn to the dark side because of the fear that he had and the power and stuff like that. A lot like Baby Yoda. So I thought the references, not just to the movies, but the whole, Yoda, Anakin, and kind of tied it into Baby Yoda, who I guess name is Gorga. She called him multiple times here on this episode. I thought that was really well done as well.
Yeah, the name is Grogu.
Grogu. Oh my god, I'm an idiot. I should have wrote that down. Yeah, Grogu. What did I say? Gorga? Yeah, Grogu. My bad. I was close.
um, yeah, that reveal to me came like almost shocked me that they dropped that like out of nowhere right
Yeah.
there.
I feel
When
like
she's
it's so,
just
I
like,
feel like it's so
Grogu
Mandalorian to
thinks
do something
this.
like that though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, but I think a lot of people were just automatically expecting his name to start with a Y because the only other two people of his species are Yoda and
And Yaddle,
Yaddle.
right? Yeah.
So I actually don't really care. Like, I knew that whatever the name was going to be kind of weird, and that like I had no expectations with the name. So when they finally dropped it, I'm like, okay, well, at least we can call him something other than Baby Yoda now. But
Yeah.
it's always going to be Baby Yoda to a lot of people.
Yeah. So I didn't really. I watched the episode later on in the day on Friday, but I did see some backlash from people that were like, "Oh, Grogu's a dumb name," or "I'll still call him Baby Yoda." I mean, I'm still gonna call him Baby Yoda too, or the child, or whatever. Was there really that much backlash from him being named Grogu? Like, it's not like it's that dumb of a name or that far fetched. And like you said, I know Yoda, Yaddle with the Y names. I feel like this might be a bit different. So, was there really that much backlash coming off the reveal of the name on Friday?
Oh, I don't know if there was any like backlash other than maybe people complaining.
Yeah,
Like
well,
they
that's what I
always
mean. Yeah,
do.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where now that it's out there, they don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, no, I thought it was cool. So it's not like they're basing an entire episode around it. Like I said, it feels so Mandalorian to just kind of drop it out there, and it didn't feel. I mean, it was random, but it wasn't like out of place, and it kind of felt. It felt fitting with the reveal of this episode because she knows the species. She knows Baby Yoda's species. She knows Yoda. So it makes sense for her to kind of be the one to bridge that gap and tell us what his actual name is. So, can you kind of elaborate? And I was kind of curious coming out of the episode. Why didn't she want to train Baby Yoda? Now, I know she had mentioned the bond that Grogu has with Mando. Is it like a separation thing where if she trained him, then she's worried that... Like, can you kind of explain that to me? Because I was a little confused as to why she agreed to ultimately not train him, even though she agreed to it initially earlier on in the episode.
I think it's a couple of things, but mostly it has to do with her guilt over Anakin, because she was Anakin's Padawan during the Clone Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and she ends up getting framed for a plot to blow up the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. And even though the Jedi eventually figure out that she was framed and offer her a spot back in the Jedi Order, she refuses because she feels like they've let her down, they've become arrogant, and she decides to sort of go off on her own. And even though she's not technically in the Jedi Order anymore, she's still, very much a good person. But towards the end of the Clone Wars show, like, you can really see Anakin, like, trying his best to make her feel like she belongs with the Jedi. And when she just keeps refusing and refusing, it kind of pushes him over the edge a little bit. And it almost seems like she could have saved him from the dark side. And once she realizes that, it sort of makes her feel guilty. So I think that's part of it. And then also she has her own mission right now to keep looking for Ezra. So she probably didn't want to get bogged down with that, but I think it mostly has to do with her own guilt over Anakin.
That makes sense. I was just confused as to why she kind of agreed to train him earlier in the episode when she knew... The Anakin stuff I completely agree with. I was just surprised that she even agreed to train him. Knowing all of that when she first met Mando and Grogu, I think it was more of the fact, like you said, that she has the Ezra mission now and she found out about Thrawn and whatever. Do you think that was a component too, now that she knows that they're out there and that there's something that she can actually do to kind of progress her own mission? That's why she, like you said, she has other commitments now, so maybe that's why. It just kind of felt weird, but I guess she kind of, put them in the right direction for where they should go to get him trained, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that she sent him to like what will probably be a destroyed Jedi temple instead of, like, I'm kind of glad that it wasn't another fetch quest of, okay, now you need to take him to find this person.
Yeah.
Now you need to take him to find this person. I mean, they're kind of just implying that, like, that will decide where he goes moving forward. So he'll either just be with Mando permanently if he doesn't choose the Jedi path, or if he does, then, maybe there's another Jedi out there who can train him. And maybe that's what they'll do with Ezra. Like, maybe they'll actually have Ezra come in as an adult and become the trainer of Baby Yoda or something.
Yeah, and I definitely think we'll be seeing him a lot more later on, either in this season or, like you said, a spin-off show, or in the next season or whatever. That might be like the central focus of season 3. This might have been kind of like a teaser for that, depending on what direction they go in. I believe, actually, I always said there were 10 episodes in this season. I think there's only 3 episodes left, I heard. One this Friday, the next Friday, and the Friday after that, and then they're done, which is a little surprising. I thought there were 10, which would only bring us up to 8. So that means we only have 3 episodes left. They're bound to be
There
jam-packed.
was only 8 in the first season, right?
I thought there were... No, I think there were 10, because this is chapter... let me double check, but I'm pretty sure this is chapter 3... Well, let me see. Actually, I don't know. Now I'm confused. Let's see. Let's go to Disney+. I'm pretty sure there were 10 episodes, and then, like, chapter 11 was the first episode of this season. I'm just double-checking on Disney Plus right now. Let's see.
I thought last week's was, like, chapter 11 or 12.
I thought so. I don't know. Let's see. Mandalorian episodes. This was chapter 13. So chapter 12 was last week. 11 was the 13th.
Yeah,
10. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, there were 8 episodes in the first season. My bad. Yeah, okay. I thought there were 10 for some reason. That makes sense. But yeah, so this they only have 3 episodes left to really get to wherever they want to go. Let me see here. There's chapter 13, 14, and 15, which means there's only 7 episodes in this episode.
Nah, that's got to be wrong. There's got to be 8. I don't think Disney would.
Oh no, I'm sorry. There will be 8. It ends here. I'm looking at Wikipedia real quick. I googled it, and it ends on December 11th. I know it ends on the 18th, so it just doesn't show it yet because it's too far out. But that would make sense. One other thing I wanted to ask you about that I completely forgot about when we were talking about Grogu and whatnot. One thing that they mentioned was that they kind of talk about his origin story a little bit, how he was born and whatever, and how that part of his memory went blank when someone rescued him. I think from the Jedi Temple or something, right? Was that what they said?
She said something about, like, his memories grow dark after that.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like while he was suppressing his Force abilities, maybe it impacted something there. I'm not sure. But the fact that they established that he was at the Jedi training facility early in his life is interesting to me, because they made it seem in this episode that, like, he's almost been playing dumb a little bit, that he actually is much more aware of what's going on than Mando thinks he is. And yeah, I'm really interested to see where they go with that, because, like, she wasn't, like, it's not the same thing as just psychically talking back and forth when she was communicating with him, but it seems like it was pretty close, and she made it seem like, you know, he knew a lot about what was going on in his own past and all this stuff. So I'll be very curious to see if they maybe do some flashbacks and, like, incorporate some footage from episode 3 when all that stuff's going down at the Capitol and Anakin's just killing people, because there's that famous scene where Anakin walks into the room full of younglings, and
Yeah.
I know a bunch of people were posting this photoshopped picture that showed Baby Yoda in the background like, trying to hide from him.
Yeah, that would be if they've reshot. I mean, they didn't actually show the killing, obviously, which is good. But yeah, it's a very famous scene. But yeah, I think that'd be cool if they showed some flashback footage of a different perspective of that scene, or just everything going on at that point. I think that'd be really cool. Who do you think saved him? Because they implied that someone took him from the temple and saved him, and obviously I think that's going to be something they blow off either this season or at some other point. Is it Luke Skywalker? Is it someone else? Do you have any speculation on that, Chris?
Well, Luke wouldn't have been born yet, because he's born right at the end of episode 3.
That makes sense. I had another guess too, but yeah, who else were you thinking?
I mean, I doubt it's going to be anything to do with Obi-Wan, since he wasn't really at the Jedi Temple when all that went down.
That's who I was thinking. You don't think so?
No, I mean, I guess they could do some creative writing to imply that he knew something early on and got Baby Yoda out of there, but it would be weird if they tried to do that, because then it'd be like, well, why didn't he save the rest of the kids too?
Yeah, what an asshole. Just saved Baby Yoda.
Yeah. I don't remember if they mentioned specifically which Jedi Master was training Grogu.
No, they did not. No.
Maybe that'll come into play at some point, because the Rebels show does establish that some Jedis did survive Order 66. It's just few and far between.
Yeah. Well, there was never any closure on Yaddle, and we talked about her previously. Could she be a potential suspect for someone who could have saved Baby Yoda?
It's possible. And it would be interesting if they did that. I know that there's some comics out there, which I don't know if they're considered canon anymore or if they're part of the Legends stuff, but there were some comics that actually went into some stuff that Yaddle was up to and like developed her as an actual character.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Well, yeah, that's one of the things I heard about the show that a lot of people have speculated that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau with Mandalorian are taking like marginalized Star Wars characters that weren't really fully fleshed out, or characters that we haven't seen in their full form in the movies at least, because obviously Ahsoka Tano was a big part of the shows, as was Bo-Katan. And I feel like she might be the next one, because obviously we've seen a little bit of Boba Fett, and now we have Ahsoka Tano and Bo-Katan. I feel like she might be next because we never really got any closure on that. And if there was any show, any form of media that would feature her as far as Star Wars is concerned, I think it would be the show, because I know she was referenced. I didn't play the game, but I've just seen videos on it. That Yaddle was mentioned in the video game, the Fallen Order game that came out last year, I think it was called.
I just got done playing that.
Oh,
But
really? I mean, it's like a throwaway line. It's not a big part of the game, I don't think.
yeah, maybe. I don't remember them mentioning her, but there's a lot of cutscenes that I don't remember, so.
Well, on that subject, what were your thoughts on the game? Because I heard some great reviews about it.
It's a fun game, but it is very linear, so, like, there isn't a ton of replay value to it, in my opinion, unless you just want to try it on a harder difficulty.
It's
But
not, yeah, it's not a game that you can go back and
Star
play,
Wars.
right? Yeah, aside from doing it more difficult.
I mean, if you want to go back and play it to, like, you know, get slightly better scores on stuff, like, that's really the only reason, but the story's not going to change at all playing at a different time.
Interesting. Well, that's going to be interesting. I got to play it at some point. I heard it was a great game. But yeah, maybe we will see Yaddle at some point. Maybe it does pave the way for this Kenobi series. Have you heard anything more about that, Chris? I forgot to ask you about that, because I know they announced it. They've talked about it. I don't know if filming is done or halfway done, whatever. But I think we've talked about this before, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do with this Kenobi series. And I think it takes place after episode 3. I think it has to. It has to take place between episode 3 and 4 to kind of establish what he was up to. But I'm really looking forward to that show and seeing if this has any correlation to that whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's because it's Ewan McGregor, so it's going to have to be him before the start of the original trilogy, and probably, I would imagine it's mostly just going to be him on Tatooine, but, maybe they'll imply that he went off on other adventures for some reason. Like, his whole purpose of staying there was to protect Luke, but obviously being on just one planet for a Star Wars series would be a little weird, so I could see them having him venture out once in a while.
Yeah, I could see that as well. We shall see. And I don't know when that's supposed to come out. I don't know if I think it's next year. I don't know if they're waiting until 2022. I feel like that'd be a little long. But we'll see. But yeah, The Mandalorian has been absolutely killing it so far. I very much enjoyed the first season. But it feels like with this season so far, there's a lot going on, but not in a bad way. Like, there's a lot of things like, obviously Moff Gideon wasn't at all featured in this episode. Didn't need to be. But, like, we still have no follow-up on the Boba Fett thing from episode 1. And maybe that was done by design and kind of make you forget about it. So when he does come back before the end of the season, it's going to be like this big reveal or big moment or something like that. But I love how there's so many different things they can kind of go back to with the Darksaber, and now Grogu, and Ahsoka Tano, and Thrawn, Boba Fett, Moff Gideon, and even anything that, the M-Count Metachlorian stuff we talked about in the last review. There's so much going on that I feel like they're setting the stage for not just the rest of the season, because there's only 3 episodes left, but it looks like they are pretty confident there's going to be a couple more seasons to come if they're setting up this much stuff in advance.
Yeah, I mean, it could be stuff that they're planning on paying off in different shows or possibly like a movie or two, but yeah, they're planting a lot of seeds, and I kind of hope they don't go overboard with that, because if they do too much and then don't deliver on it, I mean, Star Wars fans are ruthless, so.
Yeah, exactly. No, but yeah, I thought this episode was great. I love how so far there's been so much to talk about from each episode, maybe with the possible exception of episode 2 of season 2 with the frog lady. That was the only one that didn't really feature much of note at all, but even that was still solid. and there has yet to be a bad episode yet. So this was great. I completely agree with you. I don't know if it was my favorite or the best, but the fact that it's even in that conversation is saying a lot, considering how good all the other episodes have been so far from episode 1, 3, and 4. So this one was also fantastic. Any other thoughts, Chris, on this episode before we wind it down here?
Yeah, there were actually two really cool cameos.
Yep.
The guy that the Mandalorian like has a little showdown with at the end, sort of the right-hand man of the magistrate of that town.
Yeah, who was that?
That's Michael. I think his last name is pronounced Bean. He plays Kyle Reese in the original Terminator.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen... this is going to sound weird, but I've actually never seen Terminator, but I saw people referencing that online coming out of the episode, but when it aired on Friday. But yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then the woman, the magistrate herself, is a famous stunt woman, actually. Her name is Diana Inosanto, and she's the daughter of Bruce Lee's training partner.
Holy shit. That's pretty cool.
And she's like a legend as far as stunts go in Hollywood. Like she was doing stunts for Buffy and some of the Star Trek shows, and she was a stunt woman for the original Blade movie. And to see her not only get to act in this, but to have a cool fight scene at the end was really cool, because I thought that fight scene was done very well. That last duel between her and Ahsoka, I really enjoyed that.
No, yeah, I really enjoyed that too. I thought it was great. And I saw other people kind of comparing it to scenes out of Kill Bill, and I completely agree. It kind of gave me that vibe as well. But yeah, no, I thought the fight scene was great. I thought Mando having that quick showdown with the other guy, like you said, the kind of the right-hand man from Terminator, and he asked who was winning, who he thought was winning. I thought that was a great part too. Yeah, no, just also the visual effects on this episode were great, with how dark and gloomy the town was and the outside in the forest, and it really, really emphasized the double saber from Ahsoka Tano with the double, white sabers. I thought that was just fantastic. It made it look that much cooler when it was all in the dark and whatever, and it kind of being the light in the dark, there's obviously some sort of symbolism there. I thought that whole thing was really well done too.
Yeah, and what I really liked was that they did a lot of stuff from the cartoons that Ahsoka became known for, like the whole thing with pointing the tips of her lightsabers at each other before igniting them and then separating the blades. Like that's a move right out of the cartoon. The way she would like get into a fighting stance before she would start fighting just looked like the way the character used to stand when she would get ready to fight too. Like the level of detail that they went into to make her seem like the same character as from the cartoons was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it really felt like, obviously, Filoni and Favreau were behind it, but it really felt like she did her homework in that respect, too, and really studying up on the motions and mannerisms of the original Ahsoka Tano from the show, so that's commendable, too. She looked fantastic. She came across great. I thought that was really cool, and that's coming from someone who's yet to see the show, which I probably plan on starting soon, because I forgot to tell you this, Chris. I just finished last night the upload show from Amazon. Very much enjoyed it the first season. Obviously, season 2 isn't out yet. But now that I'm done with that, I'll probably start Clone Wars fairly soon, now that this whole Mandalorian thing's going on.
I gotta warn you, some of the early Clone Wars cartoon is tough to watch.
Well, they are 20 minutes, aren't they? Around there?
Yeah, but when it first came out, it was very much geared towards children, and then as the show goes on, it definitely matures, and by the time you get to that final season that they just released like last year, it's really cooking along. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you stick with it through the early parts of it when her character's kind of annoying and the show is just a little less mature, it gets really good.
All right, perfect. Well, I'll keep that in mind while watching. I'm looking forward to it. Hoping to start it soon. But yeah, this has been great, Chris. People can follow you on the Twitter machine at @BR_Doctor. Myself at WrestleRant. We'll talk next week about episode 6 of season 2. I believe it's going to be chapter 13 or chapter 14. One of the two. It's coming up next week. It should be great. But yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. We'll talk next week.
Yeah, thanks.